In the land of pass rushers and shutdown corners, the importance of the inside linebacker position has slowly been forgotten. Over the last decade, the NFL Defensive Player of the Year award has gone to a pass rusher 6 times. Of those 10, only one true inside linebacker has won it. This year, the pass rushers are the main suspects. The guys like Aaron Donald, or a guy like Joey Bosa, or even a guy like Calais Campbell. However, I'm going to make the case for the NFL to recognize a true inside linebacker instead. The guy that I'm referring to is none other than Bobby Wagner of the Seattle Seahawks. In my opinion, he has put together an absolutely incredible season. He is the glue, the very fabric that holds the Seahawks defense together. Before I really begin this breakdown, I want to show you some of his stats for context just so we can see how ridiculous of a season he's having. Wagner is the #1 run defender with over 10% of his run snaps turning into run stops. He's the #2 pass rusher with an insane success rate of 1 pressure on every 3rd pass rush attempt. And he's even the 7th rated pass coverage linebacker. Beyond these great metrics, it is the last stat that I listed that I'm honestly most impressed with. He has missed exactly 0 tackles on either passing or running plays this season. This is not for lack of trying. He is currently in the top 5 for combined tackles as well. In addition to comparing Wagner to your average linebacker, I also compare him to the great Luke Kuechly, who some want you to believe is having as good of a season. Now Kuechly, who definitely reminds me of Luke Kuechly from Friday Night Lights, is an incredible player. There is no doubt about that, but the only thing he is marginally better at this season is his pass coverage ability. Moving on, Seattle plays in a 4-2 under front for a large percentage of their snaps. In this defense, Pete Carroll trusts that his safeties and cornerbacks will help in run support while his linebackers will scrape their gaps properly. Wagner is very effective at this. The 49ers are using 20 personnel, which means they have 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers on the field. Kam Chancellor is the will linebacker, while Wagner is the Sam linebacker in this front. The Seahawks actually use both Wagner and KJ Wright as the Mike linebacker, but it really depends on the offense's formation. In this play, Wagner is lining up opposite of the right tackle, and his gap is dictated by the action of the fullback. Once 44 motions and sets as a tight end, the Seahawks readjust, and Wagner is now responsible for the strong side D gap. Michael Bennett shifted inside, and so he's responsible for the C gap. The 49ers run outside zone to the right. Wagner uses his hands to initiate contact, and then sheds the block to get into the backfield. I must have watched over 200 running plays, and I only saw him miss maybe 1 or 2 gap assignments the entire time. In Week 8, the Texans run outside zone to the left. This time, Wagner lines up as the Mike linebacker, responsible for the backside A gap. Sheldon Richardson is actually responsible for the backside B gap. For some reason, Richardson sheds his block and gets a full gap behind. This gives the running back 2 gaps to choose from, while Wagner has to scramble to cover both. Instead of panicking, Wagner gets to his assigned gap on the front side of the right guard, and then he patiently waits for the running back to choose. He sheds at the exact right moment and prevents this from becoming a big gain. Going beyond run gap responsibilities, his play recognition is absolutely phenomenal. He understands when to penetrate and uses aggression as a strength. This allows him to blow up plays in the backfield before they even get started. What I love about this is that it actually carries itself over to pass coverage as well. Versus the Falcons, he recognizes that Atlanta is trying to create a natural pick with their tight ends. This could have been a huge play, but Wagner recognized the running back's wheel route, and also Byron Maxwell and KJ Wright covered the drag route perfectly underneath. This play is clearly designed as a man-beating concept, and Wagner helps point it out before the snap, and then shows the athleticism to shut it down as well. Later in the same game, he did it again. In this play, the Falcons try to bait a zone run to the right, but Wagner doesn't fall for it. Instead, he recognized the screen and speared the tight end before the blockers could even reach him. Looking at the All-22, if they were able to make this block, they would have had a huge gain on this play. Wagner's recognition alone turned this into a tackle for loss. In the Seahawks defense, Wagner usually plays as one of the underneath linebackers in their zone cover 3 looks. Versus the 49ers, he's a strong side hook curl defender. In this role, he has to be alert for seam routes up the center of the defense. Also, he has to help rally underneath if the quarterback decides to pass the ball short. He does this perfectly, starting outside the tight end while he keyed the eyes of the quarterback. He then trusted KJ Wright and Earl Thomas in coverage, so he passed off his receiver before collapsing hard on Taylor. Now, the quarterback actually placed this ball in the correct spot. He put it on Taylor's outside shoulder, so he didn't get immediately crushed by the linebacker. However, Wagner was waiting for this. He ripped the ball out of his hands and recovered it for the interception. Interestingly enough, Wagner's other interception this season came versus San Francisco in their Week 2 match. This in the first quarter, where Brian Hoyer was still the starting quarterback. In this play, he looked for Carlos Hyde on a slant route, but he 100% missed the underneath linebacker. Since the Seahawks are playing cover one plug, this gives Wagner an easy opportunity to pick off this ball. In general, Wagner is much better when he has to play in front of him. He's an aggressive linebacker and will do whatever it takes to get from point A to point B, but play action can on occasion be an issue. His worst game this season by my tracking was against the LA Rams in Week 5. During that game, he had a few bad plays in which he was late in coverage. He bit hard on play action and allowed the seam route up the middle of the defense. Even though this was his worst game of the season, I still gave him a C+ on the day. So let's think about this. If your top games are an elite A+ level, and your worst game is average against one of the best offenses, you are a pretty damn good player. That's what Bobby Wagner brings to this team. Now, I briefly touched on this at the start of the video, but Wagner is a surprisingly effective pass rusher. The Seahawks only blitz him on roughly 10% of his passing plays, but he consistently gets pressure. Versus the Redskins in Week 9, the Seahawks run a loop with Wagner coming through the weak side C-gap. He disguises his pressure well and doesn't show his hand before the snap. This allows him to blitz free and sack Kirk Cousins in the end zone for the safety. Jumping to a play earlier in the season, Wagner threatens the blitz for the B-gap. He uses a club swim move to penetrate through the A-gap instead, which allows Frank Clark to loop through the offensive line. Clark can't finish the play, but Wagner and Michael Bennett are there to collapse on the quarterback for the sack. Overall, Wagner offers so much value to the Seahawks defense. His consistent ability to make plays, be in the right place, and also pick up the slack for other teammates allows his defense to function. Simply put, he's the glue that holds his team together. Honestly, it was of no surprise to me that the instant he went out versus the Jaguars, they scored 3 touchdowns almost immediately. It's pretty amazing the difference when he's on the field and when he's off the field. Based on all of this, it is in my strong opinion that he should win the Defensive Player of the Year award. I really do hope I have your vote. Well, thank you so much for watching. Our good friends at BetDSI.com want to offer a free $25 wager to any viewer of this channel. If you use promotion code BREAK25, you can get a free bet in your next game. If you are a casual gambler or simply want to make these games more fun, this can be your chance to do this. For this week, my favorite bet is the San Francisco 49ers at -2 versus the Tennessee Titans. I feel like Garoppolo is turning around this team and actually giving them a fighting chance. Again, this bet is completely risk-free as long as you use promotion code BREAK25 when you sign up. Now, if you enjoy this breakdown, go ahead and click the link to my Patreon account. Any amount you donate is greatly appreciated. As a side note, I want to give a big thanks to everyone for watching and subscribing to my channel. This was my 100th episode of NFL Breakdowns, and I really do appreciate all of your support. I should have one more before the holiday break, so follow me on Twitter at SamuelRGold for my latest updates.